Weddings are supposed to be magical. Instead, these 101 brides treated their big day like a literal hostage negotiation. We are talking mandatory polygraph tests, charging guests by the ounce for food, and firing bridesmaids for getting pregnant. These are the absolute most unhinged, psychotic, and downright hilarious demands made by bridezillas that instantly ruined the wedding. If you thought your family was toxic, you are about to feel much better about your life. 1. One psychotic bride made her bridesmaids sign a legally binding contract promising not to gain a single ounce before the big day. She even scheduled weekly weigh-ins. Breach of contract meant immediate expulsion and paying for her floral arrangements. True friendship right there. 2. Forget matching dresses. A bride forced her naturally blonde sister to dye her hair swamp green just so she would perfectly match the dinner napkins. When the sister refused to look like a swamp monster, she was permanently banned from the family. 3. Imagine opening your mail to find an invoice from a wedding you just attended. One bride secretly weighed the buffet plates and billed her guests per ounce of food they ate to fund her luxury honeymoon. Talk about a total cheapskate. 4. A wildly insecure bride demanded her pregnant maid of honor wear a tightly laced Victorian corset. Why? Because a visible baby bump would totally ruin the flat stomach aesthetic of the bridal party photos. The groom actually canceled the wedding over this. Good man. 5. Eye color is not a choice unless you are this bride. She forced her entire bridal squad to wear brown-colored contacts because their natural blue eyes were supposedly too distracting. Nothing says marital bliss like risking a massive eye infection for photos. 6. Want to attend this wedding? Cough up the cash. A bridezilla charged prospective guests a non-refundable $50 application fee just to be considered for an invite. She literally treated her wedding like an Ivy League college admissions process. Spoiler alert, nobody applied. 7. Trust issues reached a new peak when a bride hired a licensed polygraph examiner for her bridal shower. She interrogated every single bridesmaid while hooked up to a lie detector to find out who leaked her dress design. That is some serious CIA behavior. 8. A bride demanded her entire wedding party shave their heads completely bald. Her reasoning? She wanted her rhinestone tiara to be the absolute center of attention. When they all laughed and said no, she threw a massive tantrum and fired everyone on the spot. 9. 2 engagements are just too many. A bride ordered her best friend to break up with her fiancé because planning 2 weddings at the same time would steal her spotlight. The friend kept the fiancé and dumped the bride. Best trade ever. 10. Pets are cute, but this bride lost her mind. She demanded her venue illegally capture a wild swan to swim in the fountain during her vows. When the venue refused to commit a wildlife crime, she threatened to sue them for extreme emotional distress. 11. A bride set a mandatory spending limit for her wedding registry. If you bought a gift under $400, security literally threw it in the trash at the door. She called it a broke tax. Half the guests just turned around and left. 12. Seeing is totally optional. One bride demanded her childhood friend walk down the aisle completely blind. Why? Because her thick prescription glasses caused a slight glare in the photographer flash. The poor girl tripped over a chair and nearly broke her ankle. 13. Imagine paying $80,000 for your daughter to get married, only to get an invoice for VIP seating. A bride charged her own parents $1,000 to sit at the front table. They cut off her funding immediately, play stupid games. 14. Makeup is temporary, but laser removal is forever. A bride demanded her sister surgically remove a small ankle tattoo just to wear a specific pair of strappy heels. When the sister suggested just wearing boots instead, the bride completely lost her mind. 15. Short kings and queens got absolutely roasted. A bride set a strict height limit, completely banning any guest under 5'6" from the dance floor. She said short people ruined the overhead drone footage. Absolutely unhinged levels of vanity right there. 16. Nobody outshines the bride. She set up a mandatory jewelry check at the reception doors. Guests were forced to hand over their engagement rings and diamond necklaces to a bouncer, so the bride had the most expensive rocks in the room. Unbelievable. 17. What you drive matters to this psycho. A bride forced guests with older cars to park 3 miles away in a muddy field and walk. Only luxury European vehicles were allowed in the actual venue parking lot. Naturally, it poured rain that day. 18. A bride set a strict dress code for her outdoor winter wedding, refusing to let her bridesmaids wear any jackets in the freezing snow. She insisted that shivering built character and winter coats completely ruined the elegant neckline of the thin silk dresses. 19. A bride demanded her future mother-in-law completely remodel her own private home, just to host the rehearsal dinner. She handed over a $30,000 invoice for new kitchen countertops because the existing granite did not match her specific floral arrangement colors. 20. Identity theft is not a joke. A bride threw a massive fit because her future sister-in-law had the exact same first name as her. She demanded the sister legally change her name so the bride could be completely unique. That is peak delusion. 21. Giving up a pet is heartbreaking, but one lunatic demanded her sister hand over her golden retriever permanently. The bride wanted the dog as a ring bearer, but insisted it had to legally become hers to avoid any confusing loyalty issues during the ceremony. Completely deranged. 22. Your smile is supposed to be perfect, right? A totally rational woman forced her teenage cousin to get her metal braces prematurely removed by a shady dentist. She claimed the silver brackets would create a terrible glare in the daylight portraits. Dental trauma for the win. 23. Background extras apparently have strict casting requirements. A Bridezilla ordered her maid of honor to immediately dump her long-term boyfriend just weeks before the big day. Why? Because he was quote-unquote too ugly to be standing in the background of her pristine reception photos. 24. Paying for your own plastic surgery is so last year. This absolute tyrant expected her bridal party to pool their life savings and buy her a $10,000 nose job as a mandatory engagement gift. When they flat out refused to fund her brand new face, she blocked all their numbers. 25. Serving guests. Food is standard unless you treat them like free labor. Instead of hiring a catering staff, a bride assigned mandatory bartending and dishwashing shifts to her extended family. She even yelled at her own grandmother for taking a break during the cocktail hour. 26. Breaking a bone hurts, but ruining a color palette is worse. A bridesmaid with a freshly broken arm was ordered to saw off her neon pink fiberglass cast before the ceremony. The bride handed her a pair of garden shears and said the pink absolutely destroyed the moody autumn aesthetic. 27. Only royalty deserves direct eye contact, apparently. A highly delusional woman sent out a formal email to her 200 guests, banning them from looking directly at her while she walked down the aisle. She wanted to preserve her mysterious aura. Everyone just stared at the floor. 28. Stealing baby names is petty, but this takes the cake. A demanding bride found out her sister was pregnant and ordered her to change the unborn child's chosen name. The bride wanted to reserve that specific name for her own hypothetical future baby. The sister skipped the wedding. 29. Nobody wants an ambulance at their reception except maybe this psycho. She intentionally served a peanut butter chocolate cake despite knowing the groom's brother had a severe nut allergy. When the family confronted her, she simply shrugged and said it was her special day and the menu was final. The reception ended with paramedics in the parking lot. 30. 10 years of hair growth meant absolutely nothing to this aesthetic-obsessed monster. She demanded the best man completely shave off his beloved dreadlocks because they looked entirely too unprofessional for a barn wedding. He dropped out and took the groomsman gift with him. 31. Buying a blender is normal, but buying real estate is next level. A wildly entitled bride told her 6 bridesmaids to combine their money and purchase a modest 3-bedroom house for her as a wedding present. She actually handed them printed property listings at the rehearsal dinner. 32. Historic buildings are beautiful until they ruin your vision. A bride demanded her luxury venue completely demolish a 100-year-old wooden gazebo just to make room for her custom bouncy castle. The venue owner laughed in her face and immediately canceled her massive contract. 33. Why hire an expensive speechwriter when you have friends to exploit? A bride forced her maid of honor to write both the wedding vows and the groom's romantic speech. When the groom stumbled over the words during the ceremony, the bride loudly blamed her friend right at the altar. 34. A deeply superstitious bride threw an absolute tantrum because her luxury wedding venue had a supposedly unlucky street number. She demanded the local post office legally change the town zoning laws just for her special day. The postal workers literally laughed in her face. 35. Selling your prized possessions for love is romantic until it is forced. A bride demanded her fiancé sell his fully restored vintage muscle car to cover the cost of her custom designer gown. She said the loud exhaust embarrassed her anyway. He kept the car and lost the fiancé. 36. One bride was entirely convinced she had control over the local wildlife. She demanded her outdoor venue staff somehow prevent any birds from chirping during her 20-minute ceremony. She actually suggested they spray the surrounding forest with heavy-duty pest repellents. 37. Wearing a prosthetic limb is a reality for some, but a huge inconvenience for this bride. She told her veteran bridesmaid to take off her artificial leg and use a wheelchair instead because the titanium metal clashed with the rustic vintage theme. That friendship ended instantly. 38. Some people love their height, but this groom was not allowed to. A bride forced her future husband to wear agonizing 3-inch platform lifts inside his dress shoes. She wanted to wear massive stilettos but still look petite next to him. He could barely walk down the aisle. 39. Divorce is usually permanent, but not for a day of photos. A bride screamed at her heavily divorced parents, demanding they pretend to be madly in love and hold hands for the family portraits. She wanted her social media followers to think she came from a perfect home. Insane. 40. Exposure does not pay the bills, but try telling that to a bridezilla. She expected an entire professional band to play her reception for absolutely $0, claiming the publicity from her 200 Instagram followers was plenty of payment. The band blocked her email. 41. Having a baby is a miracle unless you ruin the spotlight. A bride explicitly banned her heavily pregnant sister-in-law from attending the reception. She was terrified the guests would spend too much time asking about the baby instead of admiring her custom floral arrangements. 42. A bride demanded every single guest memorize her entire love story before being allowed to eat dinner. She handed out a 50-question relationship quiz at the door, and anyone who scored below 90% was banished to a kiddie table in the hallway with no silverware. 43. Non-disclosure agreements are for celebrities, not basic weddings. A completely average bride forced every single guest to sign a strict legal contract forbidding them from posting photos before she did. Anyone who broke the rule faced a $50,000 lawsuit penalty. 44. Vacations are relaxing unless you have to fund someone else. This bride demanded her future mother-in-law completely pay for a luxury Hawaiian vacation for the bride's parents. She claimed it was a standard wedding tradition to merge the families. The mother-in-law laughed out loud. 45. Freckles are adorable unless they ruin the bridal symmetry. A bride ordered her teenage niece to cover her entire face and arms in thick theatrical foundation to hide her natural freckles. She said the spots looked like dirt on camera. The niece's mother dragged her right out the door. 46. Multi-level marketing schemes even ruin weddings. A bride forced her entire bridal party to purchase their dresses exclusively from her failing clothing pyramid scheme. The outfits were terribly made, completely overpriced, and fell apart right on the dance floor during the reception. 47. Sharing a year is apparently a crime against humanity. A bride threw an absolute tantrum when her cousin got engaged and planned a wedding for the exact same calendar year. She demanded the cousin wait a full 24 months so her own wedding year remained untainted. Delusional. 48. College funds are for education, unless your best friend needs a party. This selfish bride demanded her maid of honor drain her university savings account to fund a wild bachelorette weekend in Miami. She actually said a college degree was temporary, but memories are forever. 49. Priests are supposed to be holy, not fashion accessories. A bridezilla told her elderly clergyman he needed to completely shave his massive white beard before the ceremony. She claimed he looked way too much like Santa Claus, and it was ruining her sleek, modern minimalist vibe. 50. Spray tans can go horribly wrong, especially when done on purpose. A bride forced her prettiest bridesmaid to get a terrible orange spray tan 2 shades darker than natural. She deliberately wanted her friend to look like a flaming carrot so she could feel like the most beautiful woman. 51. Getting sick happens, but blowing your nose is strictly forbidden. A bride banned a groomsman from carrying tissues during the ceremony despite his severe sinus infection. She said white tissues would ruin the moody lighting. The poor guy stood there dripping snot the entire time. 52. Seeing eye dogs do incredible work, but they lack a fashion sense. A bride told her legally blind uncle his service dog could only attend if the animal wore a custom-tailored 3-piece tuxedo. When he showed up with the dog in a regular harness, she called the police on him. 53. You can pick your friends, but you cannot pick their tattoos. A bride demanded her heavily tattooed brother wear a winter turtleneck during a sweltering July outdoor beach wedding. She was absolutely convinced his colorful sleeve tattoos would clash with the pale ocean background. 54. Nobody wants to work for free, but this bride thought it was an honor. She demanded her professional photographer friend shoot the entire 12-hour wedding for zero pay as a gift. Then she had the nerve to demand all the raw image files the very next morning before breakfast. 55. Sweat is natural, but completely unacceptable at the altar. A frantic bride demanded her groomsmen apply clinical-strength antiperspirant to their entire faces. She was terrified their shiny foreheads would reflect the sun and ruin her drone photography. 2 guys broke out in hives. 56. Bringing a +1 is standard, unless they are too attractive. A wildly jealous bride specifically uninvited her brother's new girlfriend because she was an actual working fitness model. The bride admitted she could not handle having a literal perfect 10 walking around her reception. 57. Crying at weddings is normal, but only if you are scheduled. A bride handed out a strict emotional itinerary to her bridal party. They were only allowed to shed tears exactly when the groom kissed the bride, and anyone crying before that was threatened with immediate removal. 58. Cash bars are annoying, but this was daylight robbery. A bride set up a mandatory toll booth at the entrance of her reception hall. Guests had to drop a $20 bill into a bucket just to unlock the front doors. Half the invited family just went to a local diner instead. 59. Birthdays are special, unless they overlap with the wedding week. A bride demanded her own grandmother cancel her 80th birthday dinner because it fell 3 days before the rehearsal. The bride said nobody was allowed to celebrate anything but her for the entire month. Toxic. 60. Changing clothes is fine, but forcing others to match is insane. A bride had 5 different outfit changes throughout the night and demanded her bridesmaids buy 5 corresponding dresses to match her changing moods. The girls collectively quit and went drinking at a local dive bar. 61. Escaping a boring reception is an art form, but this bride built a literal prison. She hired armed security to confiscate the car keys of every single guest at the door. Nobody was allowed to leave the ballroom until she and the groom made their grand sparkler exit at midnight. 62. Forget open bars. This bride literally installed a working credit card reader on the bathroom doors at her luxury venue. Guests had to swipe and pay $5 just to pee during the long reception. Half the groomsmen ended up going in the bushes outside. 63. One absolute psycho ordered her bridesmaids to legally change their first names to match her favorite flower. She wanted to be surrounded by a squad of girls named Rose, Lily, and Daisy. When they refused, she threw her own engagement ring right into a lake. 64. You thought paying for your own dress was bad? A bride sent her bridal party a mandatory monthly invoice for her personal gym membership and organic meal prep. She said they needed to invest in her perfect bridal body. They all blocked her instantly. 65. A bride literally asked her sister to get a breast reduction surgery just for the wedding day. She felt her sister was naturally too curvy and would draw the eyes of the groomsmen away from her flat-chested designer gown. Pure delusional insecurity. 66. A bride banned her own mother from giving a toast because the woman had a thick Southern accent. She claimed the drawl sounded uneducated and would completely embarrass her in front of the groom's wealthy family. The mother sat in silence the entire reception and left before the cake was even cut. 67. A bridezilla forced her guests to hand over their unlocked smartphones to a hired security guard at the door. She then had an assistant scroll through their camera rolls to delete any unflattering photos of her from the past 10 years. Total invasion of privacy. 68. Smiling is mandatory, but this bride took it too far. She actually hired an artist to digitally alter the wedding photos, superimposing terrifying, massive grins onto the faces of guests who looked even slightly bored. The final album looked exactly like a horror movie poster. 69. To guarantee her wedding was the absolute event of the year, a bride demanded her 3 married bridesmaids legally burn their own wedding certificates. She wanted to symbolically prove that her marriage was the only one that truly mattered. Absolutely terrifying behavior right there. 70. A bride demanded her florist glue real diamonds onto every single centerpiece, then expected to keep them all after the reception. When the florist explained that $10,000 worth of loose diamonds was not included in a standard floral package, the bride accused her of stealing and threatened to call the local authorities on the spot. 71. Birthmarks are beautiful, right? Not to this tyrant. She forced her 10-year-old flower girl to wear a suffocating turtleneck sweater in 80-degree weather to hide a small birthmark on her neck. The poor kid spent the whole day crying from the heat. 72. Why hire a professional makeup artist when you can just extort your friends? A bride demanded her cosmetologist cousin do hair and makeup for 15 women completely for free. When the cousin handed her a fair invoice for materials, the bride publicly shamed her online. 73. Grieving a lost loved one takes time, but this bride had zero patience. She screamed at her groom for crying during a memorial toast to his late mother. She said his visible tears were entirely ruining the upbeat party atmosphere of her expensive reception. 74. A wildly entitled bride told her bridesmaids they had to buy her a brand new luxury SUV as a surprise wedding gift. She even handed out a detailed payment plan spreadsheet during the bachelorette party. They immediately left her stranded at the nightclub. 75. One bridezilla audited the tax returns of her bridal party. She demanded 2 of her bridesmaids dump their perfectly nice boyfriends simply because the guys did not make 6 figures. She said poor dates would ruin the elite country club atmosphere she was trying to project. 76. One bride refused to walk down the aisle until the venue staff magically stopped a thunderstorm. She legitimately screamed at the teenage waiters, demanding they do something about the dark clouds ruining her natural lighting. She then tried to sue the local meteorologist. 77. Being a vegetarian is a lifestyle choice, but this bride used it as a weapon. She forced all 300 guests to eat completely raw, unseasoned vegetables for dinner because she read it would elevate their spiritual energy. Everyone secretly ordered pizza to the hotel. 78. A wildly insecure bride forced her naturally gorgeous younger sister to wear heavily applied fake acne scars and a terrible frizzy wig. She wanted absolutely zero competition for the title of prettiest girl in the room. The sister showed up looking like a supermodel anyway. 79. Bringing a baby to a wedding is tough, but this rule was insane. A bride told her nursing sister she had to pump breast milk in a dirty janitor closet so nobody would be offended by the sight of motherhood. The sister went home instead. 80. To ensure maximum attention, a bride forced her groom to sign a contract stating he would not look at any other woman, including his own mother, for the entire 24 hours of their wedding day. Talk about some serious, deeply rooted insecurity issues. 81. Social media ruins everything. A completely unhinged bride demanded her bridesmaids permanently delete their Instagram accounts a month before the wedding. She was paranoid they might accidentally post a sneak peek of her bachelorette party outfits and ruin her grand reveal. 82. Eczema is a medical condition, but this bride treated it like a crime. She banned her childhood friend from the bridal party because she said the dry skin patches would look completely repulsive in high-definition video. With friends like this, who needs enemies? 83. A highly delusional woman demanded her guests bring a minimum of $500 in cold, hard cash, strictly in $100 bills. She wanted to literally roll around on a large pile of money on the dance floor like a low-budget music video. 84. A bride required every guest to submit a full-body photo for pre-approval before receiving their invitation. Anyone she deemed not attractive enough was quietly removed from the list. She called it quality control for her wedding album. Over 40 people were silently rejected and never even knew why. 85. You think destination weddings are fun? One bride made her guests fly to a remote island with absolutely zero running water or electricity. She called it a rustic bonding experience. Guests paid thousands of dollars just to use a hole in the ground as a toilet. 86. A bride forced her entire family to learn a highly complex, 10-minute choreographed hip-hop dance for her grand entrance. When her elderly grandfather physically could not keep up with the fast music, she banished him to the very back table near the kitchen. 87. Wearing white is a known wedding sin, but this bride took it much further. She completely banned guests from wearing any shade of cream, ivory, beige, or even light gray. One guest wore a pale yellow dress and had a full glass of red wine thrown directly at her chest. 88. A wildly jealous bride demanded the best man shave off his incredibly muscular chest hair. She was terrified his masculine physique showing through his unbuttoned shirt would make her slightly out-of-shape groom look bad by comparison. The best man completely refused to do it. 89. Imagine being asked to fund a wedding you cannot even attend. A bride sent out hundreds of fake invitations to people she hated, clearly stating they were not actually invited, but were legally required to send a high-end gift from her registry anyway. Pure delusion. 90. Left-handed people are apparently evil. A bride forced her left-handed maid of honor to sign the official marriage witness certificate with her right hand. The signature looked like absolute garbage, but the bride said using a left hand was a sign of bad luck. 91. Some brides want a quiet morning, but this one demanded complete silence. She forced her bridal party to take a vow of absolute silence for 24 hours before the ceremony to preserve the spiritual energy of the venue. Anyone who sneezed got a warning strike. 92. A psychotic bride ordered her bridesmaids to get identical permanent tattoos of her initials and wedding date on their wrists. She claimed it was the ultimate test of their lifelong loyalty to her. Unsurprisingly, every single one of them quit the bridal party immediately. 93. Having a stutter is challenging, but this bride was utterly ruthless. She banned her own younger brother from giving a toast because she said his speech impediment would make her guests uncomfortable and totally ruin the smooth flow of her luxury reception timeline. So incredibly toxic. 94. A bride demanded the venue fire a specific waitress on the spot just because the girl was naturally too pretty. She was terrified her new husband would look at the server while grabbing a champagne flute. The manager kicked the bride out of her own reception. 95. A bride demanded every guest RSVP using handwritten calligraphy on custom imported Japanese rice paper. Anyone who responded by text, email, or even regular mail was automatically rejected. She lost over 60 guests because absolutely nobody could find high-quality rice paper at their local store. 96. To ensure her wedding cake looked massive, a bride ordered her baker to build a fake 10-tier cardboard cake covered in real frosting. When guests tried to take a slice, they literally bit into thick, dry cardboard. She charged them $20 for it anyway. 97. A bridezilla demanded her guests legally surrender their passports to her at a destination wedding in Mexico. She wanted to hold them hostage so absolutely nobody could leave the resort until she officially declared the 3-day party over. The local authorities actually got involved. 98. A wildly controlling bride demanded her guests submit their reception dinner outfits for official pre-approval 6 months in advance. Anyone who bought a dress off the rack instead of hiring a custom tailor was threatened with immediate removal from the final guest list. 99. One insanely cheap bride told her bridesmaids to scavenge for half-eaten food on the guest tables instead of paying for their own plated dinners. She claimed the bridal party did not actually need to eat because the tight dresses were already too small anyway. 100. A bride demanded her future mother-in-law surgically alter her face with Botox and fillers before the big day. She explicitly stated that the older woman looked entirely too wrinkled, and would ruin the high-fashion magazine aesthetic of the expensive family portraits. Unbelievable disrespect. 101. To end the night with a bang, a bride forced her groom to sign a legally binding document stating he would pay her $1 million if they ever got divorced. He signed it with a fake name, immediately left the venue, and filed for annulment the next morning. And that was 101 weddings ruined by brides who treated my special day like a full-time dictatorship. Be honest, which demand would have made you instantly walk out and never come back? Paying to attend, shaving your head, or handing over your phone like you're entering prison? Drop your answer in the comments. Like, subscribe, and come back for more proof that romance is amazing right up until people lose their minds.